Hello, and welcome to Empowerment Radio, the podcast for empowerment coaching. I'm Adrienne Elise. The title of today's podcast is called Finding Enough Time. So this is one of the main issues with a lot of people that I work with and the world right now. We live in a really busy time. It's kind of the effect of technology and advances culturally. Everything is sped up. It's kind of funny if you go back and watch, say, old Star Trek episodes or old movies, and the younger people today will say, well, this isn't moving, nothing's happening. And it just shows you how technology has sped up our world. This is something that a lot of people notice as they are going through spiritual awakening, that time seems to be going faster, or maybe sometimes it feels like it's not moving at all. And the reality of time is that it's a complete illusion. So within this time-based reality, it is a reality, and it's kind of like we've taken this round world and round existence, and we've taken it into a ruler, made it into a ruler, and we've cut it up into pieces. So the purpose of time, even though it's an illusion and not really real, because when you get outside of this time-space reality, you realize that all time is happening at one time. So we have taken this circular experience of reality that is the truth outside of our time-space reality, and we have turned it into a line so that we can keep track of our expansion and our growth as humanity evolves. So it's a little bit tricky, and it's interesting to look at the Mayans and how they kept track of time and how they saw the calendar. They saw the calendar as concentric circles. So it's kind of like within these concentric circles, you can go in to multiple timeline realities happening all at once. So, okay, great, time's an illusion. We're cutting it up into pieces. We're making it work for our time-space reality. How does that give me more time in my life? And the thing is like, what are we looking for time for? Most of us want to get through in our day what we need to do, and so that we can do what we want to do. And so it's like we have these things that are more meaningful to us, but yet they're on the back burner. So the things that have the most meaning that we want to spend our time doing are our least priority because of the requirements of time is money paradigm. And we've got to be available to make the money we need, and we got to do that, and then maybe there'll be a little bit left over for us. Now, this is an interesting thing for me as I was going through my evolution and finding that I was really interested in this abundance principle, this idea that we know the universe is abundant, it's ever expanding, and the energies are always growing, always expanding, and yet we live in such a poverty and lack consciousness. And I realized that the place in my life where I found the most lack consciousness, poverty consciousness, was around time. And I found myself like a negative mantra that I didn't even realize that I was saying over and over again within my head. I don't have enough. I don't have enough time. So I could see that this was a huge adjustment I needed to make in my reality if I wanted to move into abundance consciousness. So how do we find enough time when time is in itself a limiting energy that we have agreed to as part of our time-space reality? The thing about prioritizing time is that, of course, we have to do what we have to do, and then we can do what we want to do. So what we want to do has more meaning to us. And yet our priority for time is spent doing things with less meaning as far as with our soul spirit resonance. Now, if you're anything like me, you are going along in life, and especially this is really common right now. We have a lot of conditioning around success is about being busy, about working really hard, about overtaxing yourself. And it's almost like a cool thing to be like, oh, I'm just so busy. You know, it's a great way when you're like really, really busy to avoid how you feel and what's really going on in your psyche. So there is a huge adjustment that needs to take place as we go through our spiritual evolution, as we begin to evolve. And that can be difficult because, you know, what happened for me was I went from a time of a very, very busy time, and I had an kind of an unforeseen business failure, and I found myself with tons of time. And, you know, the people who are really, really busy and say they want a lot of time, go ahead and give them a bunch of time, see what they do with it. We are constantly, completely distracted as humanity is programmed to hook in our technology. We have a personal computer with us at all times, always hooked into this greater grid of, guess what? Artificial technology, artificial intelligence. So it's going against the grain in a massive way to take back time and to claim it as your tool. So if we've created time as a way to measure our growth and expansion, then we can take back ownership of it and we can have time work for us. But how do we do that? Well, the first thing that happens for people as they go through spiritual awakening often is that they find that the state of mind that they're in, their need for a little more quiet and processing, their need for less and less stimulation is not quite in alignment with the schedule of things that they piled into their life over time, especially when we are feeling like we might not be valued in this world, especially women, but everybody. You know, we've all been programmed that we need to prove our worth. And so a lot of us, it's just really easy to become an overachiever and say, you know, I'm going to put this on my plate, I'm going to put this on my plate, and then I will feel like I am purposeful. Then I'm going to feel like I have something to show for myself in this world. And, you know, if the outside world looks in, hey, I'm doing my work, I'm working hard, I'm sacrificing. I don't know about you guys, but, you know, and this paradigm is not serving the true spiritual evolutionary growth process. The first thing that needs to happen, and a lot of people will go through this, where they'll realize that they cannot function spiritual as they go through their spiritual evolution. They start their awakening, and they cannot function on the level that most people can, as far as staying busy, as far as staying distracted, as far as not having time to process and be in their own quiet meditative state. And so a big thing that happens, it just gradually happens over time, but you know, we're led to a place where we need to let go on a huge level of all that we thought we could do. And when you first look at your life, you're like, well, what would I let go of? You know, it's like the world's going to fall apart if I let go of one of these things. I got to take care of my kids. I got to get them to their activities. I got to be on all of this involved in the things that are happening. But when you make that commitment to yourself, and you make that commitment to who you truly are and your true soul spiritual evolution, that is going to change. These factors are going to change, and over time, they'll just fall. Things will fall away. You have to prioritize. You have to prioritize what your true self needs. It doesn't, you cannot go along with the busy, distracted lifestyle and have a spiritual awakening. They don't work together. And when that spiritual awakening starts to occur, it can feel like things are just falling apart. And actually, the non-essential is falling away. And your life isn't falling apart. It's falling together. And so we prioritize these things in our life that have meaning, that have less meaning to us as a soul spirit, and put the things that have actual meaning to us as a soul spirit at the end of the line. So how do we do this? How do we claim back time? How do we take back time and make it a tool for our ascension, for our spiritual awakening, for our peace of mind? We have to go into that true self. And the deal with the true self, this part of ourselves that is here before we were born in this life, before we were ever born in a body, it's the part of ourselves that is source energy, the creation, God, whatever you want to call it. This part of ourselves, you can tap into this. You tap into this by paying attention to time. Now, we're all such a slave to time, but I want you to think back, whatever time it is right now, and maybe if your life's pretty scheduled and you are really kind of, everything's scheduled out, maybe you'll know, but it's like, take this moment now, the time that you're at, and just go back 24 hours. And just, can you remember exactly what you were doing? Can you remember what your thoughts were and how you were feeling? Can you remember your perception of yourself? So we've all had these experiences where a small, some sort of event, whether small or large, just had a profound effect on our psyche. And we can feel, it's like, wow, this changed me. Maybe we had an interaction with a homeless person on the street. Maybe we got a phone call from a long-lost old friend, Little things can be big triggers of spiritual, emotional growth and expansion. So when you think about that, think about, say, a year ago at this time. Can you remember what you were worried about? Okay, how about just like a couple weeks ago? What was your big concern? What was all of your mental energy going into? Maybe you have a sense of it, but probably you don't, because this is the deal. Time's an illusion, and we bought into it, and it's ruling us. So how do we take back time? So when we connect with this part of ourselves that was here when we had very different perceptions of who we were. See, our ego-based personality is continually evolving and changing. And we can see that. I was like, well, I'm a different person. Look back 5 years ago, 10 years ago in your life. It's like, yeah, no, I've grown. I'm a different person. I have a different perspective. What part of you hasn't changed? That's the true self. And this, if we can come back to this and allow ourselves to find this true self in the moment, no matter what's going on, it only takes a minute or two. Just tap in to this true self, the part of you that's been observing all of your evolution. The part of you that is watching what happens. Can you give time to that? Because this true self is where we find true meaning, and it's where we escape out of time and rework our reality to allow this time-space continuum to work for us. So we have prioritized things in our life that have less meaning, and we put more meaning on things that are on the last of our list as far as time goes. I'll get all this other stuff done. I'll do my chores, I'll do my work, I'll make my money, and whatever's left over, then I will enjoy. Now, this is where we sell our present moment. We hijack it for the future. And the future doesn't even exist. The past, the present, and the future are all rolled into this one now moment. Everything is happening right now. So just go ahead and let yourself come deeply into this now moment. Give this now moment, whatever you're doing, meaning. Become completely present. Can you do this? Like, what if you're doing something that you have to do and you're trying to get through it so that you can go do what you want to do? Maybe you're like in the car, driving home from work, stuck in traffic. Just need to get through this so I can relax, enjoy life. But this is the trick. This is how we take back time and find enough time, is by giving each moment meaning. So what if you went through your tasks in your day and it's kind of like, well, I got to do the laundry, I got to do the dishes. But what if instead of like, well, I've got to do this until I get to this. And this is kind of how we all live. And we're just sacrificing true living and true life to get to that next place. And this is how our whole lives are programmed. It's like, well, you got to go to school so you can go to high school, so you can go to high school so you can go to college, so you can go to college so you can get a job. And we're always living for the future and someday. But guess what? The only time we have is right now. So if we can bring meaning to right now, whatever we're doing, say it's the dishes, whatever your most just chore you don't really like to do. You have the biggest resistance to this one chore. You put it off and you put it off and procrastinate. Then finally, okay, I'm going to do it because when I get it done, it'll feel good. And this is just an example of what we've done for our whole life in hijacking our present moment, hijacking true living and true life, because that only happens in the present moment. So what if you could take your most kind of procrastinated chore and put meaning into it? It's not that you're going to find some esoteric meaning to it. It's just about being present with it. Like, how about it's not a means to the end, but it's the end of no meaning in our life. There's that Zen saying, chop wood, carry water. Before enlightenment, after enlightenment, chop wood, carry water. So, part of the cultural conditioning is that these experiences of human life, we're so cut off from the present, we're so cut off from our joy, we're so cut off from this connection to source that we're grasping and striving and trying to get to something in the future, and then we'll be happy. It's a conditional-based reality. And that conditional-based reality is hijacking our ability to live and enjoy. So go ahead and just take this moment. Just take a second. Just come into this now moment right here, right now, and claim it. When you claim this now moment, you come into this now moment, you're connecting to that true self. Capital T, capital S, the part of you that's been here before this incarnation, before all of your incarnations, a part of you that is that wise observer of your life. And give yourself this moment. Let yourself, if we can't claim the moment, then we can't take back time. We can't take back our life, and we can't start really living, and we can't find joy. As if joy's always in the future, and it's funny because a lot of times it's like we'll get into this thing. It's like, well, when I have this, I'll be happy and everything will be okay. When I have a boyfriend, when I have a partner, when I have a house, when I have this job, and then that thing comes around and it's the next thing we want or need. And it's just like the conditioning of this world keeping us out of the power of the present moment. And what would happen on this planet if we all just decide we're going to enjoy the moment of whatever we were doing? That's a reality buster. And this is the hack. This is the exiting the matrix, taking back time, taking back joy. So just feel yourself here, right now, paying attention to the base of your spine, just sinking into this now moment, putting down a beautiful root system in communication with Mother Earth. And just feel that presence, this heart frequency resonance, and go ahead and ask Mother Earth if she is concerned and working on and fighting for the future. She's right here, right now, and go ahead and feel yourself just surrounded and held and loved by Mother Earth. The thing about this is that when we can really come into this now moment, come into this still point place, then we're coming out of this time-space reality. And that's the hack, because there isn't any time. And so we're claiming the now moment and giving whatever's happening in this now moment meaning. We're giving our life meaning. We're opening up the door of our heart to joy. So what if it's like this horrible task, like, clean out the litter box or something, It's like, okay, go ahead, find your joy in that, right? I can feel people being like, okay, yeah, well, that's a great concept, but. Okay, so everything isn't necessarily joyful. But when you're noticing and observing and being present with those emotions, being, this isn't my favorite. But here I am, I'm doing it. Here I am being completely present as a human being in a body on planet Earth, claiming back time, claiming back meaning, claiming back joy. And so as our lives begin to expand, the responsibilities, the schedule, every minute being scheduled, that type of life, that has to fall away. We are not capable of it anymore. And this is a hard time for a lot of people as they go through an awakening, because they feel like a failure. It's like, well, I'm not keeping up with other people. I'm not able to do all the things. I can't. And they'll say they're fatigued and tired. And what if that tiredness is because you're just trying to do too much? What if you need quiet time? What if your brain and your psyche needs to surrender and just slow down and be with the truth of what is for a minute here? The thing is that when we first start our spiritual awakening, and things kind of fall apart, and we're not able to do so much as we were before, and we feel like a failure, we're going through an ego death of our attachment to the way things we want things to be. And it's hard to let yourself rest, because it feels like, in this world that you don't have any value. If you're not working really hard, if you're not sacrificing. And yet, this is how we value ourselves, is to listen to our spirit and to listen to our soul. And at first it feels like, well, gosh, I feel like I could meditate all day long. Like, how am I ever going to do anything? How am I ever going to face life? And the truth of it is that actually you only need one moment to come into the now moment and set your course in the now. And you'll get out of it and you'll end up distracted again and out of focus and resenting not enough time and all that. And then you can come back in to the moment. And it only takes one moment. And that is how we find enough time. So when you start to go through this process and you feel your ego constructs start to fall away and you feel like all of these things you piled on your plate to make yourself feel like you were doing what you're here to do, or that, what would make your family happy, or, make you look good in the world. And none of that is stacking up to give you the happiness that you thought it would. And that's when you find that you don't have enough time. And your soul spirit is crying out. Now, a lot of people might get ill. Sometimes sometimes you have to get sick in order to go down, to allow yourself that soul spiritual rest and surrender to the now moment. Whatever leads you to this place, this is when you actually start living. This is when you start valuing the truth of who you are and giving your life true meaning. Even though it feels like everything's falling away, that you were thought the way it was going to be, that you were attached to because of your mind and your personality construct, actually, you're finally getting there. And your life isn't falling apart, it's falling together. And so life happens, you make these adjustments, you find that time, you come out of the patterns of rushing and overloading your schedule in order to find meaning, to avoid your emotions. And gradually it's easier and easier to come into this now moment. And here we are together in this beautiful place of heart frequency resonance in still point, and just feel the world slow down. This is a part of spiritual awakening in the process and the life we're living right now. It feels like things are speeding up. And it's just like, how can I get it all done? But when you come into the now moment, just takes one moment right here, right now, and everything stops. And you remember, oh yeah, time is a construct we're using to measure by. It doesn't need to rule my life. And I have plenty of time because we live in an abundant universe. And I can claim back time by being right here, right now. And it's funny because, when we go through this period of our lives where we're piling things on and we're wanting to be what everybody wants us to be, and we're building our life and doing this and doing that, and it's like what we're really looking for is that meaning. We want life to have meaning. And when stuff starts to fall away and you go through your spiritual awakening, it's like, what matters? Why am I here? What's the point of this? Life has no meaning. These people are all just walking around in a daze, going to work, coming home, the same thing every day. What is the point of this? And when we can just stop and surrender and come into this now moment, we can open up to that cosmic joy. We can only have a connection to Source if we can make space for it. And it only takes a moment. And then that moment, that presence, that opening the gateway, the door, your heart to this true self gives everything you do meaning. True meaning. And when you start to open these doors and start to leave room for your consciousness, your true self to be present, you're opening up this joy. And we've just been so programmed to think, well, when we get this accomplishment or we get that physical thing in this manifested reality, then I can be happy. That's a condition. That's a condition that society has put on you, you put on yourself, and it's a bunch of crap. If you can't be happy now, you're never going to be happy when you can get it. And how can you be happy if you won't allow yourself the now? A lot of people are feeling like it's increasingly more difficult to open up to the blessings, the cosmos. This is because we're constantly distracting ourselves. And it's a huge challenge right now to go against all of that story and show up for yourself. Because guess what? A lot of us will go through life thinking, well, if I just work really hard, and then I will be rewarded with time and more money and recognition, and then I'll have permission within my being to relax, to enjoy, to live. And it just doesn't work out that way. Nobody is going to come tell you it's okay to relax in this life. You're the only person that can take care of you and give yourself enough time. So here we are in this now moment, opening our hearts to this cosmic connection, to this joy, and everything we're doing from this place is meaningful, no matter if it's your least favorite chore. And opening the doors to that meaningful existence where you have plenty of time. So just taking a few deep breaths and enjoying this now moment, reminding yourself that it only takes a moment to come back here, no matter what you're going through and whether it is something that brings you joy or not. You are your own access to joy when you choose to be present and give your life meaning in the now. So thank you so much for joining me for Empowerment Radio, the podcast of empowerment coaching. The purpose of coaching is to have that support to see real change in your life, to feel like you're on your path moving in that direction. Until next time, I'm Adrienne Elise. Namaste.